Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es
Hello, good
Alonso
morning. My name is Alonso Alvarez, and I have to say that I'm lucky enough, because I'm truly lucky, to be able to be the facilitator or moderator in this session on agile culture. Obviously, I'm not new at this job. I've been working in the field of technological innovation for some years. And somewhere along the path, I discovered agility. I experienced it and was initially resistant, and now I'm a passionate advocate. And I can see what culture can do, both whether it's immovable or flexible, by adopting much more efficient, much more productive practices that in the end are much more satisfactory. But since we're not here to talk about me, let me hand over to the speakers in this section. Before that, I would like to remind all the participants that at the end of the three presentations, we're going to have a Q&A session. And what we're going to do is to collect all the questions, queries, suggestions on the chat. So don't wait till the last minute. If you have any questions or queries for the speakers or for everyone in general, you can start to write into the chat. The first presentation is by Salvador Bosque, Salva, and he has a sort of parallel life. He doesn't have as much grey hair as I do, but he's been some years in the world of technology. And I like what he says about leadership. It's not a position, it's a choice. And really, that's one of the main aspects that the cultural change in organizations should lead to. And I'll stop speaking now, or I'll go on all morning. So I'll hand over to you, Salva. Good morning, everyone. Since we're running a bit short of time, let's move on. I'll open the presentation. Let's see. Okay. Can you see my screen? Well, thanks very much to the organization. It's been fantastic. And thanks to Open Trends, my company, for making this presentation possible. And I'll start with a metaphor, a presentation and a metaphor. The guy with the big ears is me. Well, actually, I'm inside. And I also work in Open Trends as a modest manager with the aim of being a better leader. And why a picture of a rabbit in Agile Trends? Well, it's a symbol. This rabbit works to make children happy in the same way that a leader should help people grow and become leaders. And that's what the human leadership culture is all about. And we're going to look at tools and actual cases to see how to promote people's autonomy and their growth as leaders, as a servant leader does. By the way, who knows where servant leadership comes from? If you like, you can write it in the chat. And if you get it right, you'll win a book by this gentleman. In 1970, a long time before Scrum or Lean or Agile, this person created the concept of servant leadership. And he even explained some of the necessary skills to be a servant leader: awareness, the capacity to listen carefully, and not treating people as resources, but helping them to grow as leaders. This person was Robert Greenleaf. The pandemic is a challenge for all leaders. The needs of people have changed with COVID. It doesn't matter if we look at the Maslow pyramid or Tony Robbins or the CMB needs. If there's uncertainty, we lack certainty. After food, sex, or breathing, safety or certainty is a basic need for human beings. The need for human connections, that sincere, a feeling of belonging, psychological security are even more essential, like health, rest, or Wi-Fi. Well, the Wi-Fi is a joke. So if a leader, for example, proposes to a team that they apply a 3.0 management dynamic, that's fantastic. But if it doesn't cover the basic needs of the team, it will fail. If a team is afraid to show its vulnerability, it will never be collaborative and do its best, because first you have to listen to people, starting with our own heart. And before anything, a cultural transformation starts with oneself, transforming the leaders, our gaze, and our heart. Like that rabbit that transforms his gaze into hope, a leader that focus their action on the teams, providing that safe space to provide the necessary conditions to be autonomous rather than being tempted to control. And to finish the metaphor, this rabbit before COVID used to go out a lot, but now it doesn't. But that doesn't prevent it from serving smiles. In April, this story came out as a result of a co-creation online during the lockdown, because there are always ways of adapting to difficulties. Let's look at the first tool that help to create a culture where the leaders support people so that they can be autonomous, self-organized, and grow as leaders. Let's start with feedback. It's essential to have a regular periodic feedback that's reliable in order to know about the health of the teams. And for this, there are many teams, Abbey Force, Team Pack, Office Ride, etc. But in any case, we can't limit that feedback to satisfaction surveys. It has to be frequent and sincere. Another tool, and there are many, we're going to look at just a few, is this canvas to work on team trust, how to generate the necessary cohesion by sharing concepts like clarity, transparency in the team, the degree of connection between the various members of the team, sharing the level of compassion we have for others, or the commitment we have towards the results we expect to generate as a team. Another team or another tool would be the team journey canvas that allows a team, even remotely, to strengthen its vision and its cohesion with regard to the context that envelops us as a team. In this case, the village, or the aim, the hero, the means we'll use, the sword, or the hurdles we have to face, the dragon. And we can also strengthen the connection with our people through games, like using disguises, holding a surprise birthday party through a spring review call, and opening Zoom with a cake, with candles, with everybody dressed up. And these are pictures of things we do here at Open Trends and from my birthday. But we also work hard. It's not all partying. The important thing is for the leaders to make sure that the human connection is healthy, and these tools, like many others, can help. But beyond strengthening the human connections, there are many frameworks and many schools that are very well known that cover creating a human leadership framework. And I'm going to focus on others that are perhaps less well known, but which have potential. For example, the Human Leadership Manifesto, created by Marcus Reidner, who I had the luck of working with to create the Spanish version. This manifesto reminds us that our organizations are complex cultural networks where the culture is the reflection of the awareness of the leaders. Leadership is a service to people, as Alonso said, not a role or a privilege. It's a service to care for others, like a gardener cares for the garden, to offer each individual self-fulfillment. There are a number of principles I'm not going to go into here for time issues, but if there's any interest, we can have a monographic session some other time in Agile Trends. This manifesto feels the agile cultural transformation process at BMW along various lines, along a concept called embedded teams, as they call it at BMW, autonomous teams to carry out agile development in the operations, to go from to go towards product orientation in alignment with the BMW values and the manifesto values. One of the practical tools that you can use in your teams, provided by the manifesto, is this workshop, which makes it possible to take that important initial step of getting to know oneself and internalizing my leadership style. Each person receives post-its in two colors, green and yellow, and cards with the principles. Each person reflects on how they see themselves on a scale of 1 to 10 in relation to each principle, and then they use the green post-its to explain what took them to that level, and on the yellow post-its what needs to be improved and what small steps could be taken tomorrow to move forward along this line. The next tool I wanted to mention is Humanocracy. It's an initiative from Gary Hamel and Michel Zanini, who wrote a book, and I spoke to him yesterday, and they're very interested in their work being mentioned at Agile Trends. And it's a tool which, beyond its framework that I'm not going to go into for reasons of time, it also provides tools such as this detox checklist, a tool to assess my actions last week as a manager. And, for example, identify where I can improve or where I can get better support from my teams. Another aspect are guides to carry out hackathons with top management in order to identify aspects that are a hurdle for the improvement of productivity based on individual autonomy. Other organizations that are also very well known and have a lot of tools are the Liberators, and this was also invented as a result of COVID, and this is just an illustration of one of the tools they offer, which are permission tokens. Every time somebody in the team has to ask permission for something, it's a symptom of a lack of autonomy, and they put a token in a jar. In the sprint review, there's a reflection with the stakeholders on what the impact on the product has been of all the tokens that have been put in the jar, and in the retrospective actions that can be built to solve these problems. There are also tools to measure progress and the health of the culture through various indicators, through employee MPs having an external vision of our company, etc. But beyond these tools, and there are many more, these are just a few examples, we could ask all this human leadership culture, is it real? Does it lead to benefits? Well, the first example is Michelin, a big company with 102,000 employees, created 130 years ago, that saw how its productivity dived in 2010. There was more competition and they had no capacity for innovation. And the Michelin management designed from the top a process optimization process to optimize productivity, and it failed because it was designed from the top. And in view of the major crisis, they decided to hold a pilot project led by Tam Larabin, who was famous for saving companies in a crisis, that was called responsibilization in French, or empowerment, or power, which we like to say or prefer to say in Spanish. And thanks to the plan, by giving greater autonomy to the teams, there was an increase of 1.5 billion euros and became one of the top 10 best places to work in the US ahead of Google. To make the plan a reality, volunteers were identified. The leaders insisted on the need to convey autonomy to the teams for decisions to be made by the teams, and the managers acted more like mentors and servant leaders for the teams. And in fact, there were curious situations. Once a manager said to the teams, why don't you identify an action that you can carry out, one of the actions I'm currently doing, in order to give you more autonomy? And the team said, well, we don't know what you do. We see you first thing in the morning and then you leave and we don't know what you do. And perhaps you spend all day drinking coffee. So what they did was to observe their work mutually, a lean technique to observe and learn firsthand from the leaders how the work is done, to identify areas in which to be more autonomous. And I was lucky enough to work with Yves Casson, who's currently the global CIO for Michelin. And I saw how he sat down with his junior programmers to make Kemba a reality, to learn on the ground. And these are specific actions that were designed, and the teams had more and more autonomy. Other examples I wanted to show you, although we're running out of time, is the NHS, the National Health Service in Great Britain, one of the biggest and most complex organizations in the world, where there was an enormous workload and stress that currently reminds us of the situation in our hospitals today. And Helen Bevan launched an initiative that was completely bottom up, without permission from management, with the aim of improving healthcare. It was called Change Day, which consisted in that everyone, health staff, patients, should propose a small idea for change and implement it to improve the NHS in order to improve patient care, and the results were spectacular. There are many more examples like Rolling Star and many others in the references, but finally, I would like to summarize by saying that achieving a human leadership culture means just helping leaders to grow. There are many tools to do it. We've seen a few here, and doing it means illuminating, lighting up the lives of people, which is almost as beautiful as getting children to smile. Thank you very much. Great, thank you very much, Salva. As we said at the beginning, the time limitations are terrible. We would like you to speak for 2 hours and then take another 2 hours to ask questions. But now for our next speaker, Sonia Sanchez,